the most psychologically disturbing movies Iceberg. Some movies make you scream, others make you cry. But the most disturbing ones? They don't make a sound. They sit still. They don't jump out or raise their voice. They just slip into your mind and twist. These are the films that haunt you days after the credits roll. The ones that don't rely on blood or monsters, but on something worse, your own emotions. What you fear, what you grieve, what you deny. These movies don't scare you, they change you. And once they're in, they don't leave. This is the most psychologically disturbing movies Iceberg, a descent into emotional and mental horror. Each level digs deeper into the mind, from subtle unease to grief to madness to total collapse. And by the time we reach the bottom, you won't just be watching pain, you'll be feeling it. Let's begin at the surface. Level 1. Uneasy reflections. These films don't immediately terrify, they unnerve. They tilt reality just enough to make you uncomfortable until you start questioning your own thoughts. Behind a quiet house and a flickering children's book, something begins to unravel. The Babadook, 2014. A grieving widow, a troubled child, and a mysterious pop-up book seem like ingredients for a basic horror story. But the deeper fear comes from the invisible, the mother's emotional collapse. Her husband is dead, her son is erratic, and she's slowly breaking under the pressure of motherhood and loneliness. The Babadook becomes a metaphor for grief, a thing she refuses to confront, which only grows stronger the more she denies it. What terrifies people most is not the monster's face, but hers. Her ability to love and hate her child at the same time. It's a horror that doesn't lunge, it creeps. And for many, especially parents dealing with burnout or depression, it doesn't feel fictional, it feels like a memory. Viewers described it as emotionally claustrophobic. Some admitted they couldn't finish it, not because it was scary, but because it hit too close. One person wrote, "I didn't sleep because I saw myself in her." The quiet unease builds, but what if that same feeling of fading, of being dismissed, happens in public view with no one reaching out? Level 2. Madness behind closed doors. In the middle of a spotless, sun-drenched suburb, a woman starts to vanish, and no one notices. Safe, 1995. Carol is everything a mid-century housewife should be: polite, clean, uncontroversial. But then her body starts rejecting the world. Chemicals, scents, sounds. She develops a condition no one can explain and slowly becomes allergic to modern life. Her friends and husband tell her it's psychological, that it's her fault. With no answers, she isolates herself in a retreat promising spiritual healing. But instead of recovering, she empties out. She stares in mirrors, repeats mantras, nods silently. Her final words, "I love you," are spoken to herself like a stranger trying to remember their name. Viewers described the film as cold and paralyzing. One said, "I felt like I was being erased too." Others noted a creeping dread that had nothing to do with plot. It came from the fear that this could happen to anyone without violence, without warning. When the world denies your suffering long enough, you begin to wonder if you imagined it. And that quiet internal gaslighting can be more damaging than any scream. But identity doesn't always vanish quietly. Sometimes it shatters. Level 3. Identity collapse. When the mirror turns against you and your own reflection becomes a stranger, the horror no longer has to knock. It's already inside. Perfect Blue, 1997. Mima is a rising J-pop idol who retires from singing to become an actress. The shift is meant to give her more control, but instead, she begins to lose herself. Her fans turn on her. She's stalked by a man who believes she's still the innocent version of herself. A website appears documenting her every move, including things she never did. Then she starts seeing her double, the old her, still smiling, still pure, still watching. Her grip on reality fractures, especially after a brutal scene where her character is assaulted and she can't tell if it was just acting or something more. What makes Perfect Blue disturbing isn't the violence, it's the erosion of identity, the confusion between self and performance. One viewer wrote, "I started checking behind my mirror before bed, not because I expected something, but because I feared I'd find myself." The film was so unsettling that it's said to have influenced Black Swan and even terrified Darren Aronofsky himself. It leaves you paranoid, anxious, and unsure whether your thoughts are truly yours. But sometimes the horror isn't forgetting, it's in remembering everything for the rest of your life. Level 4. Time is a trap. This level doesn't scare you all at once. It stretches pain across years. You don't just experience suffering, you age with it. Come and see 1985. Floria, a 14-year-old boy in Nazi-occupied Belarus, joins the resistance believing he'll be a hero. Instead, he becomes a witness to atrocities. Burning villages, families shot, children buried alive. He walks through hell and survives. But survival doesn't mean healing. The film used real bullets, real danger. The young actor aged physically during filming. His eyes by the end are glassy, hollow, the same way many viewers felt by the credits. One person said, "I couldn't speak. I sat there shaking. I felt like I'd aged 10 years in 2 hours." Another wrote, "I was afraid to look at children for days. I didn't want to imagine them going through what I saw." There are no dramatic strings or heroic endings, just silence and time stretching like a noose. And yet, even in war, people sometimes find purpose. But what if the only thing left is grief? Level 5. Grief as a weapon. Some people grieve and move on. Others grieve and unravel. And a few live inside their grief until it becomes the only thing that feels real. Son of Saul, 2015. In Auschwitz, a Jewish prisoner named Saul is part of the Sonderkommando, men forced to dispose of bodies from the gas chambers. One day he finds a boy's corpse and becomes convinced it's his son. He stops at nothing to bury the child, clinging to this one act of love amid unspeakable horror. The camera barely leaves his face. The background blurs, but your brain fills in the screams, the shots, the smell. And that's what makes it worse. The horror is imagined, and it never stops. Viewers felt trapped. Some said the movie stayed in their bodies for days. One person wrote, "It felt like someone had let me hold their trauma and then walked away." Another described it as suffocating, holy, and wrong. This isn't a Holocaust movie. It's a spiritual implosion. And by the end, you're not sure if Saul found peace or if he lost the last part of himself. But what happens when even grief is taken away? When there's no hope, no story, no future, only rot. Level 6. Suffering without relief. This is where meaning vanishes. Pain isn't a lesson or a metaphor. It just is. And it lasts. Possession, 1981. A couple's marriage falls apart, but not into divorce, into something else. The wife begins screaming, writhing, miscarrying something unknown in a subway tunnel. The husband grows violent, paranoid. Their identities twist. A double appears, and nothing feels real. The horror comes not from gore, but from psychic collapse, from watching two people tear each other apart until they literally become something else. Viewers were left speechless. Some walked out, others stayed and wished they hadn't. One reviewer said, "It felt like I had been possessed too." This isn't about marriage. It's about spiritual annihilation. And finally, we reach the abyss. Level 7. Reality turned inside out. This is the bottom of the iceberg. No metaphors, no safety nets. These films don't explore trauma. They are trauma. And once you see them, they don't leave. Sallow, or the 120 Days of Sodom, 1975. 4 fascists kidnap a group of teenagers and subject them to escalating psychological and physical torture over 120 days. But it's not the violence that scars you, it's the tone. There's no music, no emotion, just cold, clinical cruelty. Every action is methodical, detached, inevitable. Viewers didn't scream. They went quiet. Some walked out. Others vomited. One said, "It didn't feel like watching a movie. It felt like watching someone's soul rot." It doesn't push your limits. It removes them. The act of seeing from one's own eyes, 1971. No script, no actors, no safety. Just real footage of real autopsies. Bodies are cut open, organs removed, skulls sawed, all in silence, no narration, just you and death. Many viewers reported anxiety, dizziness, even passing out. One person said, "It didn't gross me out. It made me realize how easy it is for a person to become nothing." This isn't horror you watch. It's horror that stares back. Bonus round, Beyond the Iceberg. There are some films that don't just disturb, they're forbidden. Not because of graphic effects or edgy ideas, but because they cross a line where art becomes suffering, where even governments say, this should not be seen. These aren't just hard to watch, they're banned. And the one below, it's not just infamous, it's infamous for a reason. Cannibal Holocaust, 1980. Found footage, jungle terror. A film so real, the director was taken to court for murder. A group of documentary filmmakers travel into the Amazon to record a remote tribe, but they disappear. What follows is a recovered reel of what they filmed, staged acts of cruelty, manipulation, assault, and then the revenge of the tribe itself. But here's what made Cannibal Holocaust so disturbing. Many of these weren't staged. Real animals were killed. Real fear was created. The film blurred fiction and reality so deeply that authorities believed it was a genuine snuff film. The actors had to appear in court just to prove they were alive. But the horror doesn't end there. What viewers weren't prepared for was the emotional corrosion. The movie presents Westerners as exploiters, posing as documentarians while committing violence for views. It forces the audience to question their own voyeurism. Why are you still watching? What does that say about you? Some viewers reported vomiting, panic attacks, and blackouts. Others said they felt filthy just for finishing it. Film festivals refused to screen it. Countries banned it for decades. And those who have seen it often wish they hadn't. One viewer said, "It felt like trauma I hadn't earned, like I'd witnessed something evil and couldn't undo it." By now, the water is black. We've reached the bottom of the iceberg, the part where fiction ends and something colder takes its place. These weren't just disturbing films, they were psychological events. They didn't just scare you, they hollowed you out. These are the movies that don't end when the credits roll. They stay in your chest. They follow you home. And the worst part? They're still out there. So, if you want to dive in, be warned, you won't come back the same.